Well, thank you all for coming. I'm here with FLEETCOR, and we are sponsoring this breakout session. And really excited about sharing kind of the future of CX with you. For those that don't know FLEETCOR, just a real brief introduction. We're a global business payments company located and based here in Atlanta. And we help businesses make payments. So some businesses take payments. We help companies actually make payments. And so we help automate the back end from AP automation, and then we actually create payment cards to help companies actually control their spending from employees in the field. So really thrilled to be on the panel as well, so anxious to get started.
Perfect. All right. Well, we're going to do this. We're actually going to do the introductions from each of the panelists themselves, right? So I don't put words in anybody's mouth here. So Mike, you want to start off?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. I'm Mike Gomes. I'm the Chief Experience Officer with a company in town called Cortland. Cortland is a real estate developer, owner, operator. We've got about 60,000 apartment homes around the country, which makes us one of the largest ones in the country. We are the largest owner-operator here in Atlanta, in Dallas, Fort Worth, etc. My journey here is interesting. I spent 20 years working with Duncan from Disney Parks. So many of the stories that he tells, I also tell. So I told my CTO, I'm glad he's not here, because it would look like all I've done is copy Duncan. But when we do leave Disney, we walk around with that language and that innovative spirit, and I got an opportunity to work on a bunch of really, really cool things. Why would I leave Disney? It was the opportunity to work on the next cool thing, which was Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So helped build Mercedes-Benz Stadium as the head of fan experience, helped launch Atlanta United, and worked for the Falcons. And now I'm in this really sexy world of apartments, but more to come.
Great, and a little bit more on me. So I've been at FLEETCOR for 4 years. I'm more on kind of the generalist side, but work with a lot of our lines of business on our customer experience initiatives. And so I've got background on more of the corporate marketing and corporate strategy side.
Hi, good morning. First off, I don't know what's going on with my photo up there, but I don't normally look that plastic. But I'm Adam Waid. I'm the VP of Success at SalesLoft. We are the #1 sales engagement platform in the marketplace, which essentially means we help codify your sales process, then we become the platform, email, social, phone, to help hold your reps accountable and drive more pipeline.
All right, thanks. Well, quick show of hands then. So for folks in the room, who here is part of customer experience? Either, let's say, part of the organization or has an impact on it? All right. All right, the name of this dialogue here is the future of CX. So I think we all feel this every day, right? The products and services that are out there that our companies provide, that's not enough anymore for the customers and consumers of 2020, right? It's the experience of what it's like to be able to work with our companies and what that really means, along with the products and services that we deliver, which really make a difference, and how that experience can be really a differentiator. So really the purpose of this conversation, we've got about 25 minutes or so of dialogue back and forth here. We got a set of questions, and we had a great call last week. It felt like it was the panel before the panel, which was a lot of fun. But then we'll open it up for the last 10 minutes for Q&A. So save all your questions, but we definitely want to be able to hear from the audience here. All right? So starting off here, there's a whole idea of, and Duncan talked about this as well, just the idea of, let's say, like the seamless customer experience, right? So what are we doing across each of our 3 companies to be able to create that seamless, harmonized digital customer experience across channels? So Adam, I'll open this up to you to start with.
Okay, no pressure going first here. So what are we doing to create a seamless? So we have a mantra, which actually came from Disney, which is own the moment. So every single person, from support to SDRs, customer success, professional services, we want them to see how their specific role and little conversations that they're having affects the overall customer experience. And so we talk a lot, we train a lot, we role play a lot to ensure that they're owning their very specific moments that helps put together the larger experience that the customers have. Yeah, own the moment.
So I'm going to be the one that gives you some stats. I did not work at Disney. I like Disney, so that's always helpful. But I think sometimes it's helpful to kind of take a step back and look at why customer experience. And so a couple stats to maybe kind of think about that really kind of impact what we do at FLEETCOR. But the first one, Salesforce in 2019, they had a State of the Connected Customer report. They found that 84% of customers actually felt that their experience with the company was as important as the actual product or service itself. And so experiences are really driving why people are going to renew with you and everything else. And the one that's on the flip side of this, PricewaterhouseCoopers had a 2018 study, and they found that 32% of customers will walk away from a brand they love if they have a bad experience. And so trying to drive that consistency through all that you do, I think is really critical. And so at FLEETCOR, that's one that we're really kind of focused on, is how do we improve what we do for our customers every day for their entire journey. And so a couple examples for us, we're a business that's been around for 20 years, and so we have a lot of legacy offline type of systems. And so how do we try and bring that in? Because the customer's expectation is essentially that they want to have everything at their fingertips through any channel. So historically, you'd go online and you'd maybe apply for a credit card or a payment card, and then we'd have to get back to you 3 days later because of actual approval. And so getting that to be actually real time, and how do you get that so that while you're online, while you're filling out an application, you can actually get to real-time credit decisioning, as an example. The flip side of that, along their journey, now they're using the product, how do we get kind of fraud alerts using AI to actually understand it and now get that into the customer's hands? And so before that may happen afterwards, and now trying to get that more real time are some of the big things we're working on.
I'll show two examples, one from Disney and one from my current industry. So you heard Duncan reference the 2011, what became the Magic Band execution. So I was part of the strategic leadership team. I did not have anything to do with the Magic Band, but I was in the room as it was kind of evolving and created. The true thing that we were doing when we started off on that initiative was to build a physical digital fusion around the customer as the individual. That's not just a bunch of, kind of cool buzzwords. That was the intent, was to say if we know who the person is and we know where they are and we know when it is in their vacation journey, how do we allow them and enable them to have an even better experience? The Magic Band was your physical interaction with the physical theme park environment. My Disney Vacation and WaltDisneyWorld.com, which is the part that I had overseen as the product owner, was the digital way in which you could now interact with the park. And when I say who, when, and where, if you were in Cleveland a month before the vacation, your notion of planning is very different than the morning you're about to go to Magic Kingdom and then it rains, which is very different still than you just got off of Dumbo and now you want to know what's next. So that continual contextual adjustment that adjusts to you and who you're holding, we believed created a better way for you to make informed decisions and help nudge you along in your vacation experience. And that was what had come to market in around 2012 or so. The business I'm currently in real estate is so messed up that the entirety of the customer proposition isn't even clear because we don't know who the customer is. And what I mean by that is, any of you who live in apartments, most companies do not see you as the customer. The way in which the capital structure works in our industry means the investor, that capital company sitting in New York, that's the customer. So as a result, you make ill-informed decisions. You do not invest in digital. You do not act as if the people that are actually paying the bills that fuel the investor return are the people that are choosing to rent in your given apartments. As such, the entirety of our digital ecosystem is outsourced, all of it, as if that part of the customer experience doesn't matter. Real estate is still stuck in the physical-only notion of real estate and doesn't think about everything from the web experience to self-service tools to frictionless abilities to interact with that overall environment. That's the journey that we're now on as we look to both less develop, more than guide industry players to help develop solutions that allow for a much more seamless digital overlay to the physical living experience that you have.
Let's keep going on that theme then. I think you bring up a really interesting point. Who is the customer? Is there one customer? Are there multiple customer groups? How do you really understand wants and needs? Scott, you want to start?
Sure. So I think it's important that everybody in here think that you have a customer. So whether you're in sales or support and you're actually front-facing with a customer, or in IT, or you might be running database in the back end, you have customers as well. And so I think it's about reframing who are your customers and not thinking of them always as the person that might be paying for your product. As I think Duncan was talking about, the employee experience is really what drives the customer experience. So what are you doing to help your employees, even if that might be your internal customer? And so I know some of us may be in that type of a role. So how do we think about even maybe taking a net promoter score and actually doing that with our other users inside the company? You're going to generate a lot of great insights that way to figure out, wow, would somebody in the company actually recommend my department to others in the company? And I think that's an interesting question that I've asked previously, and maybe the first time I got results back, I wasn't super happy about all of those, but it does open your eyes very quickly.
You know, it's a great question. I jokingly said on the pre-panel that I've been in the customer experience business for 20-something years now, and I've actually never had customers. I had guests at Disney, I had fans or supporters at the stadium, and now I have residents, right, that are the customers. And because I do focus on that end customer, whereas the investors are an important customer client of ours, and I 100% believe in what Duncan said when he said your employee is the most important. I do believe that the culture of your organization enables your internal associate, employee, cast member experience. They, in turn, will enable your outward-facing customer experience, which becomes the reflection of who your brand is. Those four elements cannot become disintegrated, or you will find that your customer experience objectives never quite hit their mark because you haven't invested the same amount of time on your own internal culture and your own internal associate experience. And he mentioned Southwest Airlines. That model, whether you're Chick-fil-A or Southwest Airlines or the Ritz-Carlton or Disney Parks, is very, very much consistent. Culture, associate experience, resident or customer experience, and then that becomes the brand that you want or are trying to be.
So I'm going to add to that. Employee experience, organizationally healthy environments is key, but I'm going to flip it on its head for just a second. So how many of you are in the SaaS space right now? Okay. If not, even this applies to anyone. Do you know who your current target audience and customer is, your ideal customer, and do you know what makes them enjoy or dislike your product, and how often do you refresh and think about that? And so one of the things that we do outside of the employee experience is we are constantly looking at customers that have renewed and expanded, those are big things in the SaaS space, versus customers that have churned. And we look at similarities, we look at things like support tickets, we look at things like adoption areas of the platform. And so what we start to do is to really identify what a healthy customer looks like, what experience led to that being a healthy customer, and then we start the trainings internally to make sure that we can replicate that experience across our entire customer base.
That's good. Just one other thing that I'll add, because it's an easy trap for us to fall into. You actually don't have customers, you have customer, and you just have lots of them, right? The opportunity, each of us as a consumer wants to be treated as an individual. And as a lot of you are trying to figure out means by which we can Netflix our own business, because each one of our own pages in Netflix looks unique to us. And so is Facebook, and so is Amazon. And you may say, well, it's easy, they're a digital company. But that is a challenge because those expectations that are being set across those consumer interactions are setting up the expectations of how the customer wants to interact with you. The customer, the fan, the resident. It's easy to say, well, I'm just going to treat them as a large group, but each of us as individuals want to be treated as an individual. That's an extreme challenge across a lot of our industries.
All right, so let's keep that similar theme then. So Adam, you brought up the whole aspect of, let's say, moments, right? When you think about customer experience, experience can be so broadly defined in a good way, right? Before customers ever become customers, right? And all the way through. When you think about, let's say, empowering employees, how do you think about empowering them to be able to make a difference in that specific moment?
Well, I guess it comes down to, do they know what they're being measured on that relates to a great customer experience? And I have found, I've been in the SaaS space for about 15 years, on and off in different marketing roles. A lot of times, individual contributors don't necessarily know how their day-to-day contributes to the overarching goals of the company. And so if you can then begin to break it down, I'll give you one practical example here. So for example, if a customer support representative knows that they need to respond within 30 minutes, because on average, customers that have renewed and expanded have had this response rate from technical support, you can then put measurements into place so that they can hold themselves accountable, you can hold them accountable, but then you can train on the areas that they may be a little bit inefficient in. And everyone wants to know that they're doing a good job. Everyone wants to know that they are working towards the common goals of the company. And so if you can break it down by each individual contributor, helping them understand how their part equals the greater whole, and then constantly train and iterate on that.
I think it's important when we think of the measurement aspect then on what is that process. And so we focus a lot on measurement within FLEETCOR around, you can say you can't have improvements without actually measuring what you're trying to improve. I think the same can be true that you really can't improve if you don't act. And so when we look at kind of our customer experience, part of that we kind of break into three kind of sections. So the first is really about capturing. So we're going to capture feedback from all of our customers. That makes sense. Then you're going in to analyze that. You're creating insights from that. But I think the most critical part is the acting side of this, which becomes kind of the third leg in that stool, which is really about how are you prioritizing this in your organization so that you're focused on the right things. We all have more probably work on our plate than we know what to do. And so we get feedback from customers, and there's a lot of things we could go do. How do you find what are the things that are going to drive the biggest impact? That kind of prioritization within your company, kind of looking at a combination of effort versus impact that it might make, helps you to kind of put your rocks all in the right place and kind of put your eggs in fewer baskets so you're not kind of spreading yourself too thin.
One of the things that Adam said is so important. At Disney, we used to call it role in the show. Now, you may be somebody who never interacts with a guest. You may be somebody who works in the laundry, which is the largest laundry facility in the world. You have a role in the show. You understand your purpose. You understand why it is you get up in the morning. That is how you get to truly feel empowered. I ask you, when you go back, look at your purpose statements or your mission statements. If it has the word shareholder return in there, you ain't motivating your employees. You're just not. Nobody wants to get up every morning and go, yeah, I'm going to deliver shareholder return today. No, I'm the guy that's dealing with a massive number of complaining people, right? Or I'm the person who, when we speak of moments, right, and we have a physical interaction, right? We're not just a virtual company. We have physical interaction. A lot of people think operations is experience. All of the things that then enable that person to deliver in that moment of truth of face-to-face interaction operations is where you truly see whether or not all of the work everyone in this room did actually delivered against that purpose that enables that experience to go above and beyond when the moment matters, right? When the moment matters. But look at the purpose, look at the culture, look at the training, and figure out, are you motivating your people far away from your organization? Somebody sitting in Phoenix, Arizona in a small team, do they understand why they're getting up every single morning to do the work? Because it's important to who they are, it aligns with who they are, and they believe in the mission of the company.
I think everybody here, from a show of hands before, most of us are part of the customer experience in some form or fashion, right? And I don't think anybody would disagree that investing in a better experience is a worthwhile endeavor, right? But these sorts of investments go up against all sorts of different competing priorities, operational efficiencies and anything you can think of, right? So we talked about measurement a bit before here too. When you think about, let's say, like the ROI of building a customer experience, to be able to get things funded with the CFO, what sort of things have worked in your organizations to be able to help drive that?
We fake it. So, yeah. So, the good news is if you work for a company that actually believes in it, and I mean from the top down, and when I went to work for the stadium, the reason that I'd even gotten hired is Arthur said, I want to do things that actually favor the fan. I want all of our decisions to be based around the fan. That's why that food and beverage program is unbelievable, right? Because Arthur said, I'm going to do something no one else has the guts to do in sports, even though it is the lowest rated components of 60 things that are tracked by the NFL in every single game across every single part of the league. The 4 lowest performing elements of customer experience are food and beverage speed of service, food and beverage variety, food and beverage quality, and value for price paid. So what does everybody do? I don't know. I'm going to go build the new San Francisco 49er stadium, and I'm going to perpetuate the same broken business model. And I'm going to do it again in Minnesota. When I speak on this topic, I go, how many people have snuck food or drink into a movie theater? It's all of us. You know why? Same broken business model. So if you're actually not going to think of the fan, so in some cases, we make the argument in that kind of way that becomes less about measurement, and it becomes we aren't doing the right thing by our customer, and at some point, as Duncan mentioned, you'll be left in the dust and you'll go, what happened? And Gen Z blew past you. Because you just continued to do things that favored your business and didn't actually figure it out how to favor the customer. So a lot of times we build this burning platform argument that if we don't do it, we could become a case study. Does anybody want that? No. Well, give us funding and let us go do stuff. And then I leave to go to another job.
And Arthur Blank, it sounds like he also believed in this as well, right? Did it come also from the top and around?
Totally. Remember, Arthur's the founder of the Home Depot. And he has 7 core values that are the exact same core values that Coach Quinn and he has to manage and lead his team as he did at the Home Depot, as he does with his foundation, and as he does with all of us. And they very much are listen and respond to the customer is at the core. He goes, we didn't try to go compete on price. He goes, and when I would walk in my stores, and Arthur did all the time, he goes, I would talk to anybody who walked out without a product. Why? Did someone not come and help you? Were we ineffective in helping you understand what you needed? Did we not have what you wanted? Did you find the pricing was bad? So that he could then work with his teams to figure out how to better enable. He goes, when you go to Home Depot, you're trying to do one of 2 things. It's like going to a hospital. This is the story he told. He goes, you're either trying to fix something because it's broken, or in the cosmetic surgery space, you want to make something look better, right? And he goes, and that person, man or woman, who's walking in, your goal as the associate is to try to help that person walk out to enable them to become a hero to their family. I built a swing set. I built the new deck. I remodeled the bathroom, right? That's what the purpose is. You're not just the guy that's selling a drill. You're the person that's helping that person walk out informed, confident, so he or she can go home and be a hero.
So I'll take the pragmatic side on this, the emotional side of what you can do and everything else. I love that. And so with us, we do look at a variety of businesses that we have in FLEETCOR, and they're all in kind of different stages of maturity when it comes to servicing customers. And so as we kind of take a step back on the strategy side and say, where should we be focused on customer experience? I think there's really 3 areas you're really trying to look to drive value for the organization. So the first one is around improving the customer experience to try and drive improved retention. I think that's one everybody kind of thinks of, and that's really kind of the first building block. You got to start there before maybe you go to the other one around word of mouth and referrals. We'll kind of fix what's broken before you're actually going to go try and have people refer it to others. But that's the first one that I'd say most of us are kind of focused on. The other 2, I think, are as you're kind of maturing along in your customer experience journey. But the second one is around how can you now take that customer that's actually really a fan of what you do and say there's an opportunity here to actually grow share of wallet. What else can we cross-sell? What else can we upsell to this customer? And then I think the ultimate is actually getting them to be the promoter for your company. And now you're actually using them for word of mouth and referrals. So you're driving new business through some of your customers.
Just make sure question is funding or
ROI of customer
ROI. Okay.
See, I took it away from that.
No, that's all right. That's all right. All right, so this shoe may not fit every single person in this room, but last week I had the opportunity to present at the board level for SalesLoft. And I showed them all of the data around our customers, why they're leaving, why they're staying, why they're expanding, by region, by segment, how many of touch points equated to certain areas of expansion or renewal or churn. And so knowing your data, if you do not know your business and your customers in every single segment, and most of you come from large companies, and I know that you do, but if you do not, you have got to start measuring what is going on with your customer experience and how your individual teammates are affecting that customer experience. And then you have got to be able to articulate, because I got the question in the board, and I'm sitting around, there's 15 people in the board meeting, presentation, I didn't sleep the night before, and they said to me, Adam, if we gave you $2 million, what return would we get for that $2 million? And I thankfully, was prepped for that question, but I was able to give them 3 specific areas that, from a customer experience standpoint, that I would invest in: scaling, preparing for the enterprise, And creating more opportunities for data collection is where I would invest in, because those are the foundations to ensure that we are building a great customer experience. And so knowing the question at all times, what would you invest in to generate more bottom line revenue for the company, is really what you need to be thinking about.
All right, there's a second breakout session coming up here too. So in the interest of time, I want to be able to give this back to the audience, right? What questions do we have for our panel here? Yeah, in the back.
I guess that's me.
Yeah.
So, one of the things Duncan was talking about seemingly was this journey that we're on, where we're getting away from pure financial consideration. We're thinking more about customers and employees, right? Which is in and of itself is a pretty big challenge. What do you guys think about the potential for leaders to take decisions around CX, which is more about what's the minimum investment I have to make to keep the maximum number of customers, which is flipping it around, right? So in other words, I need to keep these customers, but I'm only going to invest a certain amount, and how much can I do that before somebody leaves?
So to repeat the question back then, so you're saying...
What do you think is the potential for that kind of thought process to go on?
What's the
Rather than just giving this the PR answer, which is absolutely not. We're all about customers and employees, right? Okay. Or sorry, what's the other terminology? Team members and cast carriers.
Cast members, associates. Your question's an important one, but it goes back to the comment of who are your customers. So you just explained a very specific focus of who you believed your customer was, and it wasn't the entirety of your customer base. It was these customers, whether they're your most valuable customers in that 80-20 split, whether they're the ones that have the biggest risk of departing, as we've heard earlier, and then what do I need to do to satisfy and excite them to continue to remain with us? There's nothing wrong with that approach, right? In some cases, if you try to boil the ocean and you try to do everything to everybody, you're going to accomplish little, as opposed to saying, I know who my customer is. I'm going to do an initial set of customer experience related initiatives, whatever they may be, and then you can measure the success. And then, by the way, if you have success, your level of innovation is going to say, what can I do next for either a different customer base or how now? By the way, the moment your expectations get set, all of us, your expectations change. You'll hear a lot of people now saying the experience economy started in 1999 when Joe Pine and Gilmore wrote the book. We're now in the expectation economy. The expectations each of us have for every interaction we have is being set by all of the interactions you have with all of the other customers, right? The entirety of Starbucks menu is a guideline. And everyone in this room has a different offer. That is mass customization like you've never seen it in a physical environment, right? So those expectations, once you've accomplished that, your customers are going to ask you, I don't know, a year later, what's next? What's more? That guy's offering me a lower price and the same experience, because everybody's trying to keep up with the Joneses in that regard.
I'm just going to add one quick thing here. So I have, none of my teammates are on here, just making sure. So I have it's true though, and I would tell them this. I have a spreadsheet at all times of ways that I could cut costs if they came to me and said, I need you to cut X, Y, Z. And so we are always thinking about how we scale, but provide a great experience at scale. And so that is really the name of the game, especially in the SaaS business, once you get to a certain size. And so the question would be, I think it was least amount of investment for the maximum ROI, something like that.
That's fine.
Yeah, okay, well, anyhow, so I would make sure that you learn how you can scale and still provide a great experience for your customers.
All right, I think, Sue, we probably have time for one more question, then we'll be wrapping it up here. So,
Actually, you guys have about, we are ending at 10:50.
Oh, at 10:50,
Yeah.
fantastic.
10 more
Oh,
minutes.
God.
Yeah.
This up there. All right, great. On this side.
Thank you.
Talked a lot about external customers, which of course all of us have an impact on, but many of us also face internal customers. We're producing dashboards, or we're a developer for an internal piece of software that others are using inside the company. What are some ways that those sort of teams could use these same ideas that are more outward facing, internally facing?
Oh, I'm the one with the mic. So In many cases, it's no different, right? The customer is defined in this case as somebody's internal. What are his or her needs? What are the things that they struggle with every day? You heard Duncan say, what are their pain points? What do they wish could be better? I don't know why I have to, every time I hit this, the screen refreshes. Every time I have to hit this, I have to go to a separate screen. I just wish it could operate differently. The user experience, everybody's got to have an opinion on it. If it's a UX kind of tool, I wish it had this data point. I'm always needing to do this. I have service requests for this. Those types of things, once you better understand and sit either in their shoes or observe them, or just ask them through whichever means, qualitative or quantitatively, we'll start to identify areas of opportunity for you to improve the product and service you deliver to your internal customer, no differently than how you would do it to an external customer. You just have more direct access to them, which is sometimes easiest.
Yeah, and I alluded to it earlier, but at a former company, I ran a database team, and we were a shared service. And one of the things we wanted to kind of get feedback on was, well, how are we doing as a team? And so we actually did instill a survey process, an internal NPS, where we went out to all of our internal shareholders and essentially asked them that question, if you were going to recommend us to another colleague in the company. And we were able to track that back, not only in total for the company, but even on kind of some individual basis on what they actually worked on. And it was really informative because that was done, one, yes, you want to go ask them, but this was done a little bit anonymously too, so we got some very pointed feedback, and that allowed us to answer kind of the question when the boss came, what would you do differently next year? Well, here's what the customers, our internal customers, told us, and so you can prioritize that way.
Two quick things, plus one to all of that. I would say you will normally see cranky and bad outward-facing experiences if you have cranky and bad internal experiences as well. So organizational health is so important. So if you are not focused on that and you don't have that within any of your customer-facing teams or certain segments of your customer-facing teams, you need to stop and prioritize that, because it's too important for them to come in and love their job, or at least be satisfied and happy and see how they're contributing to the overall value, and then provide that same experience to the customers. Second thing I would say is radical candor. If you saw someone providing a horrible or a bad experience for your customer, as a manager, you would probably pull them aside, you should, and say, hey, this is where we needed to close the gap here. It happens less often, which is a shame internally, when you are working with a colleague or something. There needs to be that same teaching and radical candor, internal customers as outward-facing customers as well.
Other questions? Yeah.
I don't know if I need Mike, but
It's really for the camera, so we can get it.
oh, fantastic. Okay, so in the last 5 years, I've been with a large insurance and financial services banking kind of conglomerate, Fortune 100, and they have about 35,000 employees, and turnover is about every 5 years. And I know you talked, I think perhaps Scott raised it, about employee experience being important. One of the things that we found in one of the segments I was responsible for as a customer experience leader, responsible for bringing offline experiences and digitizing them, we found that our applicant experience was a problem. And in particular, where in many cases our applicants were also our customers. And so and not to walk past this, I'd be interested in the panel's thoughts. One of the things that we found was that our applicants, when they had an adverse experience, if they did not get the position, I took a segment of 100 of our postings, looked at those and said, hey, of these 100, we're getting about 100 applicants. That's 10,000 applicants here in a given year, and many are not getting the job. And so that's impacting the downstream, the share of wallet, the deepening with those existing customers, and as a trailing indicator, the Net Promoter Score. And so I'd be curious of the panel's considerations of what the applicant experience is and how you're applying those CX principles in that future state to the applicant experience.
And specifically the employee applicant experience, I'm saying, right?
Oh, well, no, I mean, if we're talking about external hires, you're talking external hires, we were getting about for, of our 1,000 postings a year, I would
So the comments I guess I'd have, and we don't really address it specifically, but I think in today's day and age, that applicant experience is probably more important than ever, because those that are applying for your job, and let's say they never actually hear back whether or not they got the job, well, they're going to go to Glassdoor and tell everybody about that experience. So that experience is now very much front and center with what's happening, and everybody can see that as other candidates are coming in. So we talk a lot about kind of FLEETCOR is not a go-to-market brand, but it is our employer brand. So how is that important for driving applicants? And I think the same principles certainly apply there, which is you want to be able to follow up. We haven't talked a lot about kind of like a closed loop feedback. I think applicant tracking is probably the worst of that in many cases, where you don't follow back up afterwards on the status. And I think that's what, it's not that they didn't get the job, it's that they didn't actually hear back about either way.
All right, so real quick, I'm not an expert in this area, but I'll tell you what some things I've seen that are great and some things that are not. So I worked for Salesforce for a number of years, and the stat that I heard that you were more likely to be struck by lightning than to get hired at Salesforce because of the number of applicants coming into the jobs that are open. And I will say that it was a fantastic employee and new hire experience, and it was consistent across the thousands of folks that they brought on, that we brought on. We do the same at SalesLoft, and so here's my thing, is that if your HR employee onboarding experience team is not talking about the candidate experience, then I think you have a problem. And I think that's when you bring it up to say, we've got to be thinking about this overarching experience for these folks. What are we doing? What are the gaps? And then how can we solve it together as a team?
You're fighting for talent today, probably like you've never done before. Maybe even harder than you're fighting for customers, right? So in that regard, as these guys just said, you need to just look at and think of the entirety of their experience. First impressions matter. All the psychology will tell you they matter, and they have a longer downstream impact on their overall impression than you might want them to. So this is somebody who doesn't even work for you yet, so why invest? How do they find out about the role? How do they apply for the role? How do they get a level of response that whatever it was they submitted has been seen? What is the frequency with which they get responded? What is the quality of their response? When they then show up for an interview, where do they park? How good are the directions? How are they greeted? What is their welcome experience? I will tell you that when I came to Cortland and I got there, a woman who was engaging with me was so nice. I'd like to think it wasn't because I was applying for a C-suite position, but you never know. But I sit in the main lobby. I must have had 5 different people stop me and go, or just come up to me and go, "Sir, do you need help? Like, are you here to meet somebody in particular?" Just that already was indicating to me the quality of the people in this company, who everybody would just walk right by. I'm not meeting with that guy, I'll just walk by. I wanted to make sure that Mike was okay, even though nobody knew who I was or why I was there. That said a lot to me. So think through the entirety, because those impressions do matter.
It's a really interesting common theme, right? We talk about customer experience, but even customers, right? We talk about guests and fans, et cetera, and even employees and applicants, folks who are trying to become employees, right? It's really about experience in general. More so about who that's with. So one more question in the back, and that's what we've got time for. Yeah.
So I just piggyback on that last question. I wanted to say that you really need a very good applicant tracking system, and that you should add personal touches to it.
Do you have one you recommend?
Maybe. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about the customer experience after somebody becomes a customer. So 6 months in, a year in, what kind of percentage of dollars and time are you putting into support, customer questions, anything like that? I often see that at really large companies, they might not do a great job at that.
Maybe we probably have time for one of us to respond.
I'll be really quick then. So it's hard to answer how much. I would just say look at your leading and your lagging indicators from adoption and what the customers are saying from CSAT or NPS, and forecast what you need based on where you're growing, and then fix the problems that you're hearing for your current customers. I'll simplify it like that.
Great.
I'm going to make one last comment. Whatever business you're in, whatever industry you're in, whatever service you deliver, get the basics right. I sat at a technology panel, and everybody wanted to talk about all of these great new things. I said, guys, you got to recognize what's important to your customer. So if you're sitting here trying to put the cherry on top, but you actually haven't made the ice cream, right? We love Chick-fil-A, and Chick-fil-A is awesome. How many times are you going to go there if 3 times in a row the order's wrong through the drive-thru or the chicken sandwich is cold? We take it for granted because they have figured out the mechanics to get their basics right every single time. You cannot advance to the shiny new technology toy until you get the basics right. We did not do in-seat delivery in Mercedes-Benz Stadium. We had everybody in the industry go, why? We said, you're solving the wrong problem. Lower the damn prices. That's what everybody wants. Then we can tackle the next opportunities. Understand what the most basic expectations are for your customer. Deliver on those relentlessly and vigilantly before you then pass to the next level.
All right. Mike, Scott, Adam, thank you. Are the three of you able to stick around for a few minutes if anybody's got questions afterwards? All right. Have a great summit, everybody.